the men of Davos, I call them the men of Davos, have kind of a Malthusian agenda. They think that we need depopulation, we need to see lower amount of people on Earth, and so they try their luck with COVID. And now it seems COVID was not enough for them. They are trying their luck to spread war. Unfortunately, I think that NATO will try to trigger a false flag one way or the other. It could be by pushing Poland into the conflict directly or indirectly. It could be by sending troops into Ukraine, like it seems that there's a plan that NATO could send 250,000 soldiers into Ukraine. I mean, this would clearly means that the war is no more between Ukraine and Russia, but is between Russia and NATO, and indirectly it's between Russia and the US.
Welcome to Discourse with Christian. I'm your host, Christian White, and today is a returning guest, Laurent Lequeux. He's also known as the Macro Butler on Substack. Laurent, great to see you again. How you been?
Christian, I'm been good. Interesting time we are living in, and it's my great pleasure to be back on your show.
Absolutely. We definitely are in very interesting times, to say the least. I know our mutual friend Martin Armstrong's been, mentioning about a lot of things on his model, and also sources that he has, especially over in Europe, with things unfortunately escalating. I figured we'd start off your current overall view on things. Where are we at in the world, Laurent?
Well, if we look at the global economy, I would say that the global economy is slowing down. So I think that we met previously highlighted the risk that the world would head into a stagflation or an inflationary bust. And this is an ongoing process. We have seen economic slowdown in Europe, in Asia, and even now, I think that the US could be heading also in this inflationary bust. So the reason that the US, the global economy is slowing down is clearly the escalation in the war cycle and geopolitics. We had the 12-day war in the Middle East, which pushed oil prices higher for a while. And then after that, oil prices pulled back. Then we had the looming conflict in Eastern Europe. President Trump said before he reached the Oval Office that he could end the war in 24 hours. We are 6 months in his mandate, and the war is still going on. And in fact, if we look at the recent development around his announcement for around Russia and also BRICS, it looks like the war in the Middle East, in the Eastern Europe, will escalate. And then recently we had some regional conflict also popping up in Asia, the Thai Cambodia border tension, which looks like could be a regional war. So, if we look at history, wars are stagflationary, like tariff are also stagflationary. So, what investor should expect in the next 6, 12, or even 24 months is a stickier inflation and lower economic growth, which will be, in fact, in economic terms, is a stagflation or an inflationary bust.
How long do you? I mean, obviously, no one has a crystal ball and such, but how long do you surmise that would last, so to speak? That stagflation that you're referencing.
Well, I think it all depends of how long the global conflicts are taking place. Again, it's very difficult to stop a war. I come back to the ongoing conflict in Eastern Europe. There are a lot of players at stake, and clearly there doesn't seem to have a peaceful solution ahead. In the Middle East, it's clearly more a ceasefire than at the end of the war between Iran and Israel. I think that this war could restart at any time. And as I just said, now we have an extension of the war cycle to Asia. So it's not only this border tension between Thailand and Cambodia, but also there are increasing tension with North Korea. And of course, again, I come back to the recent announcement made by President Trump. If he targets BRICS countries for doing trades with Russia, we could see China and also India entering into this war cycle.
I had Michael Yon on the last, let's see, yesterday, and he was sharing with me about Cambodia and Thailand and how it was really predicated on not. So this is according to him. I'm sure maybe you have your take. It wasn't so much predicated on the, I guess, the special monument that they have there, but more of routes and resources where that area is. And I guess they're wanting to do something similar to like the Suez Canal or the Panama Canal, where they're I guess they're I don't understand the Malacca or some other area there where they're trying to the Chinese are trying to have some bypass. I mean, could you I don't know, speak on that, or do you have any comments?
Yeah, I think that unfortunately, in the Thai Cambodia border tension or conflict, I think that we can suspect that another American alphabet agency is behind this conflict. I mean, there have been tension for centuries. These go back to the time of the colonization of Cambodia by the French. But from time to time, these border tension are rising. I think that the recent development comes at a time where Thailand is increasingly doing trades with China and Russia, and the Thai government was and is still in negotiation with China to build a land bridge, railroad land bridge across Thailand, which would, if it's built, it would bypass the Malacca Strait, and it would reduce considerably the influence of the U.S. Navy in Southeast Asia. So the project that China and Thailand has is, I mean, in the past they were talking about a canal called the Kra Canal, but it appears that the canal option has been pushed back, and now they are talking about a railway connection between the two sides of Thailand, where there will be ports on both sides where cargo ships could unload and load their container, and this will allow Chinese cargo ships to avoid to use the Malacca Strait, and this will also reduce the time of shipping goods from China to, let's say, India and the rest of the Middle East and Eurasia. So I think this project is part of the One Belt One Road initiative that China has been developing over the years. And as I said, these conflicts come at a time when there was some tension inside the Thai government, and so there was a kind of a disagreement about this project with China. But it's according to me, in fact, this conflict is kind of another proxy war with BRICS. I mean, the US and the Western world have been in a proxy war with BRICS in Ukraine, have been in a proxy war with BRICS in the Middle East, and now the conflict extends to Southeast Asia. I think that it's also important to put things into the context that a few weeks before the conflict started, President Macron came to Southeast Asia, and he was also looking for extending NATO to Southeast Asia. So he plead the NATO agenda in Singapore at the Shangri-La dialogue, and he quite push some countries that are very close to the US, like the Philippines, even Singapore, to join NATO or to create a NATO proxy in Southeast Asia. And clearly, I mean, would this happen? This would jeopardize the China trade relationship with most of the Southeast Asian countries. So I think that unfortunately this conflict, this border tension, found its roots is in another proxy war that the West, the NATO, or even the men of Davos are trying to spread against BRICS.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating when you hear about. I mean, apart from the West and a lot of these, forces, if you will, really trying to foment, conflict and very much at a war with the BRICS nations. It is interesting how I've heard people coin it as kind of a multi-spectrum war that's going on. Information, like in a sense, like there's a war that's been going on that most people are not even aware of, whether it's informational in nature or totally blanking out. But but there's a myriad of other things that the countries are employing that are going on behind the scenes. And potential false flags and things of that nature. Could you perhaps expand on that and how that maybe impacts the markets?
Well, I think that clearly NATO needs to justify its existence by creating conflicts, right? Because if there is no war, there's no reason for NATO to stay around. I mean, NATO, if we look back at history, NATO was created to fight against the Warsaw Pact. The Warsaw Pact was kind of dissolved when communism fell, and NATO stay around. And I mean, the NATO members and all the lobbies behind NATO are trying to justify its existence by creating conflicts. And unfortunately, I would say that this comes at a time where a lot of European countries are facing domestic economic challenges. So, I mean, we are always in this situation in history that when there is economic challenges domestically, the those in power will just create a war. I mean, they can use a false flag. They can create an event to try to push the attention of their citizen to a war rather than to the economic challenges than they have. I mean, if I look at the state of the economy in Germany, in France, in the UK, I mean, the economy has been in decline since COVID, since the start of this decade, and with the massive immigration that these countries have encountered over the past 5 years, clearly additional problems have come uh, for European citizen, and there are no single European leaders in power who have tried to solve the problem. In fact, what they have done is they have tried to push aside their political opponent. Can be in France with Marine Le Pen, can be in Germany with, I mean, trying to outlaw the AFD, or everything that has been done against Nigel Farage in the UK, or even I take the example of Viktor Orban, which is probably the only European leaders who really care about his own citizen. He has been kind of uh, or put as a black sheep among European leaders. So I think that there's clearly a way of dealing problem in Europe, which is let's create an event. Let's create events like the war in Ukraine, like any kind of regional conflict, which could divert the attention of our citizens from the real problem, which are unemployment, rising food prices, shortages of energy. And I mean, unfortunately, I don't see any uh, short-term way of going out of this negative spiral, because in fact, as I said, those in power in Europe are doing whatever it takes to eliminate their opponent.
This reminds me of the 1930s with the economic situation, obviously pretty severe, and the rise of ultranationalism. And I think it's interesting that, I mean, not just in, parts of Europe. I think of, like Spain and Germany, but also over in Japan, and how, obviously, like today, a lot of the economic stuff going on. And is now you need the continued boogeyman and such. And one of the things that I've been asking previous guests, Laurent, is kind of pinpointing who who they feel is really who are the main culprits behind the veil, so to speak. Because I hear about NATO, and I hear about BIS, I hear about Bank of England, and who might you say, in your opinion, if you care to share, is kind of behind that? I'm just trying to better understand the top of the pyramid, if you will, of power.
Well, I think that is what is called a deep state. Unfortunately, nobody really know who is the deep state, but I think there are, I would say, a club of people in this world who have no interest in spreading peace, who have no interest of spreading prosperity for we the people, and they just want, at the end of the day, to spread prosperity for themselves, and they are ready to take any kind of action to, I would say, put forward their own agenda. So, who is the deep state? I mean, in fact, in the US, I think it's quite clear that President Trump benefited from the support of what is called nowadays the PayPal mafia. It's quite clear that Vice President J.D. Vance is kind of a product of this PayPal mafia in one way or the others. So who is behind the PayPal mafia? I think it's all the Peter Thiel and all the tech billionaires who have kind of tried to repopulate the Washington swamp to spread their own interests. I mean, if I can speak a bit about this, I mean, President Trump was elected by the MAGA crowd. He get the support of the MAA crowd, but unfortunately, when we look at what he's doing in 6 months in the job, he's not really doing anything to support the MAGA and the MAA crowd, because you will remember that 1 week in the job, he was in the Oval Office with Sam Altman and Larry Ellison, and they announced the Stargate initiative. And when the Stargate initiative was launched, it was clear that this was to promote mRNA vaccine or mRNA products, which appeared to be kind of very harmful, at least from what we learn from the COVID experience. So I would think that it's important to link all the dots, and then I'm very disappointed by President Trump. To be honest, I really thought that he was a president of the people, but 6 months in the job, it appears that most of the decision that he's taking is to one way or the other favor the PayPal mafia, and he forgot his MAGA route and his MAA route. And once again, the recent announcement around Russia, I think, is a major turnaround from what he told us he would do if he were president. And in fact, unfortunately, I think that he has been also once again taken by uh, the the deep state and those in the Washington swamp who cannot live without war. And again, I mean, we can go on Twitter where he kind of push the candidacy of Lindsey Graham, which is, I mean, I call him the regime changer in chief. So I'm very surprised from President Trump's action, and I think that the consequences for the US will be that at some point the MAGA crowd will realize that they have been fooled by President Trump. And this will put the question of what is next for the US. Because if someone like President Trump, who appeared to be the president of we the people, is not really the president of we the people, but is once again the president of uh, one kind of plutocracy, I would think that this would clearly jeopardize the stability of the United States in the medium term. So uh, I think that that would be the root, in fact, of a possible split of the US. The split will not only come between the blue and the red, but also between inside the red, between the red who are really focused on the MAGA crowd. And here I can think about Ron Paul, for instance, or MG Marie-Laure Taylor Greene, who are really people who seems to really care for we the people, while another part of the red or the Republican Party is just part of this, I would say, unilateral deep state. I diverted a bit from your question, but I think it's important to notice that, because in the rest of the world outside the US, we have seen this trend also of some candidate. And I come back in France, we have Marine Le Pen. In UK, we have Nigel Farage. In Germany, we have the AFD. Of these candidates seems to appear to be uh, politicians who really care about the issue of everyday citizen. Unfortunately for them, they have not yet had the chance to be in power. But if President Trump, who was supposed to show the way for these other politicians in Europe and around the world, I mean, I think about Milei, I think about other example, or Bukele in El Salvador. I mean, if these people are not delivering on their promise for their people, in fact, this would create it cement a kind of a potential anarchy across the world.
Gosh, yeah, it is very interesting what has what's transpired as it relates to Trump and his base, especially like things like Epstein, and then also the continued war in Ukraine, and then what's going on in Gaza. That's really upset a lot of people.
But I think that, as I said, he was supposed to be the president that will release all the documents that American people were waiting for 4 years, because during the Biden administration, everything was kind of put behind the curtain. And when he arrived in the Oval Office, at the end of the day, there has been very little change. I mean, we get some update on the GFK assassination, but I mean, these are very old events, right? The American people are more interested of what is really happening now in the recent past. And I think that the fact that he's hiding what is behind the Epstein files, he has been unable to find a solution to the Gaza issue. And in fact, he has clearly sided to the Israel side in this conflict. While what he should have done personally, he should have taken a more neutral stance on the Gaza issue. and now he's also siding towards the European and Ukrainian side in the Ukraine Russia special operation. So he clearly doesn't do what he told us he would do. And I think this is kind of a recipe for a big disappointment, especially from those people from the heart of America who truly believe that he would be the president that would change the system. At the end of the day, at least from what I can see after 6 months, he's just the president who continue with the past the system, meaning there's still a plutocracy in Washington. There are still some people in the US who are favored by some legislation. And here I come back to also, I can think about the Genius Act. The Genius Act, of course, is a genius fact because uh, the US government needs domestic savings to finance its deficit. And since President Trump has not really been committed in cutting spending, he kind of put aside Doge. It is clearly there's clearly a need to find new ways of financing the U.S. deficit. And once again, what the Genius Act will do, it will favor the big US banks, it will favor the fintech companies. I can think about the PayPal of this world, or uh, even the companies like Visa will probably issue stable coins and will probably benefit from the Genius Act. So I mean, once again, the Genius Act. If I look at what he said, his action in the Middle East, his recent comments around the Ukraine-Russia conflict, he clearly doesn't seems to be the president that uh, he told us he would be.
And as it relates to the conflict over in over in Ukraine, and having gone from what 50 days to now 10 days, and you have Med I'm gonna botch the name, Medvedev, obviously taking a very different stance than Putin per se. Where do you? I mean, obviously, you don't have a crystal ball. I get that. What what is the most likely probability in your opinion that something happens kinetically, like next month, as Armstrong has kind of alluded to, like, or in a year from now? I mean, what's your take?
Well, I think that would the U.S. Put sanction or tariff on countries doing trade with Russia, this will be clearly the catalyst of the world war. I mean, this will. I mean, putting sanction on India, putting sanction on China, putting sanction on any countries that is dealing today with Russia just because they are buying Russian oil, and Russia buy goods from them, would clearly increase the polarization of the world. This would, in fact, reinforce BRICS. BRICS was really created after 2022 when Russian assets were frozen by the US government and by European institutions. And if President Trump is going one step further and is imposing tariff and sanction against countries doing business with Russia, this would clearly reinforce BRICS. In terms of the development of the war in Eastern Europe, unfortunately, I think that NATO will try to trigger a false flag one way or the other. It could be by pushing Poland into the conflict directly or indirectly. It could be by sending troops into Ukraine, like it seems that there's a plan that NATO could send 250,000 soldiers into Ukraine. I mean, this would clearly means that the war is no more between Ukraine and Russia, but is between Russia and NATO, and indirectly it's between Russia and the US. And if we are entering, I mean, if we are going on into this path, I think that China will clearly side with Russia. And we have already, I mean, tested waters in June, right? Because when there was the war in the Middle East, I mean, it was also kind of a proxy war with China. China has invested a tremendous amount of yuan and renminbi in Iran, has developed infrastructure to take out the oil out of Iran by rail. So trying to impose a regime change in Iran was kind of pushing China to enter the conflict in the Middle East. China has shown, as always, a lot of reserve. I think that the Chinese government, and because of the Chinese culture, uh, they are not usually very keen to take action very spontaneously and entering into a war. But like Medvedev is clearly a Russian neocon, there are also neocon in China. So, I mean, Xi Jinping's power is in decline. Its influence on the Chinese government is in decline. And Xi Jinping, like Putin, is a very reserved person. He tried to find a peaceful solution to the ongoing conflicts and to the ongoing wars, can be trade wars or kinetic wars with the West. Unfortunately, if the West push for some kind of regime change in China and in Russia, meaning that we have much more conservative president or conservative regime in Beijing or in Moscow, I mean, we are entering into a spiral that could easily degenerate into a world war. So this is not something that anyone wish, right? Because I mean, no one. I think that people must understand that no one outside those selling weapons, no one is really benefiting from a war. I mean, everyone will suffer one way or the other. Would it sit in Beijing, in Los Angeles, in Mexico, or in Bangkok? Everyone will suffer of a global conflict, and we, I mean, so what the people who are trying to push the world into a war are doing is that just to try to bring a much more I would say warmongering people among the leaders of the global south, because they have they have understood that neither Putin nor Xi Jinping will enter the conflict voluntarily. So they need to find a trigger to create this. And maybe I take a step back and look from a bigger point of view. I mean, wars are generating death. And if you remember, and here I'm coming from a point of view that could sound like a complotist point of view, but I think that what we learned from the COVID crisis is that, I mean, it's now quite common and widely accepted that COVID was not a natural disease. It was a disease that was created in a lab. Would it be in China? Would it be in the US? Probably we will never know. But the disease was probably created because the people, and mostly here I come back to the people, the men of Davos, I call them the men of Davos, have kind of a Malthusian agenda. They think that we need depopulation, we need to see lower amount of people on Earth, and so they try their luck with COVID. Now it seems COVID was not enough for them. They are trying their luck to spread war. And I think this is more important. And I mean, taking a step back, it's clearly a conflict between the Malthusian people who think that there are too many people on Earth, and they are the elected ones who can only enjoy to eat beef and to fly on private jet, and the others should just not be allowed to live, or they should just be allowed to eat the bugs. And on the other side, we have the global south, which is a mercantilist bloc, and which is trying just to create a bright mercantilist future by, I would say, trading between each other and creating prosperity by trade. I mean, this fight will continue. I think that we are just in the middle of this fight between the Malthusians and the mercantilists. Hopefully, the mercantilists will be able to succeed in their agenda, and then by the next decade, we will be able to live in a world where everyone accepts others' difference and just leverage on others' strengths rather than looking to fight with others.
Yeah, it seems the world has been plagued with the ego, pride, vanity, fill in the blank, and it is it's pretty fascinating when you go down different rabbit holes about power structures and the forces that are shaping things. So it's looking like they need a false flag event. They need something to happen. And if I might ask on a side note, and I don't know if you have already mentioned it, pardon me, but I've heard some speculate October 7th, that it was a false flag. Do you care to share your take on that?
It seems that there were a lot of coincidence that looks like kind of a false flag. I mean, again, I mean, if we take a step back, October 7 was really an accelerator in the war in the Middle East, and it has been a trigger to accelerate the tragedy in Gaza and in Palestine. And once again, I mean, this shows that people are not able to live together, and because I think that, and mostly in the West, a lot of people want to impose their own agenda, their own way of life to the rest of the world. I mean, if we take a step back and look at history since World War II, US, I mean, it's nothing against America, but the US has tried to impose its American way of life to the rest of the world. McDonald's has spread across the world. Starbucks has spread across the world. Coca-Cola has spread across the world. It's not necessarily that people here in Asia or in Africa or in South America were keen to eat McDonald's and drink Coca-Cola. It's just that they were told that this is the way that they should behave. Similarly, the US government, since World War II, has tried to impose regime change in every country which was not following its agenda. Uh, Sometimes it was successful, most of the time it was unsuccessful. But once again, I don't think it's someone in Washington in a small office underground who should decide uh, who should be the president of one country and what kind of uh, type of political system a country should adopt. I think that this comes back to the people of every country to decide who they think is a good president, who they think is a good political system. And what the US has tried to impose is its one size fit all agenda to the rest of the world. And unfortunately, we are coming to the end. And this come back to before it was the European with the colonialism was the same story, right? European went to colonize South America, went to colonize Southeast Asia, went to colonize Africa, and the Europeans imposed their way of life, imposed their way of their political system to these countries, which are not really the solution. Every country has a reality. Every country can be ruled by one political system or the other. There's no such things of the one size fit all agenda. And we are at the end of this cycle. So I mean, the end of this cycle comes because it's clear that the U.S. imperialism is weakening. I mean, the U.S. Empire, because it's burdened by debt, is not able to impose its political agenda, its economic agenda to the rest of the world. So we are in a transition time period. I mean, this transition time period will most likely last for many years. I think that we are just in the middle of this. It's probably started with COVID, and then it will last until probably the mid of the next decade. But the hope is that, I would say, and I come back to, I want to give a positive message to the audiences. The hope is that, I mean, once the Malthusian people of Davos have disappeared, the hope is that everyone on Earth can live on their own, I would say, best political agenda. And I think that we are going back into a system where the power goes back to we, the people, and where all the republics and the plutocracy will disappear. Of course, in terms of investment, this will also have a lot of implication, meaning that clearly we will see a lot of probably a lot of government default in the coming years, and that's why I think that for investor, they must stay away of government bonds and any type of fixed income product. In fact, because in such an environment where investor and citizen have no trust in their public institution. In fact, it's highly inflationary. And here I just take the example of emerging market in the recent past. If investor or citizen have no trust in their president or in their political system, the way that they behave economically, it's clearly inflationary. So I think that the world, in fact, is entering a period of time of structurally higher inflation because of all this geopolitical and political uncertainty. And also, this would mean that I mean, investors should stay away from fixed income and focus on real asset, can be commodities or gold, as well as on owning shares in good companies, because the good companies will go through this period of uncertainty much better than the governments.
Yeah, you covered many things, and I know we're wrapping up here, but just for observational purposes, um, it is fascinating how much the West has impacted the world for the past 500 years. I mean, the fact that um, we're all speaking English more or less around the world, and it's fascinating how that came from the British Isles and how it's just spread everywhere. And then after post World War II, come Bretton Woods and U.S. hegemony and such. And I just wanted to comment and say that doing this has really been an eye opener for me because as an American, and embarrassingly, I haven't really traveled very much outside other than Canada and Mexico. It is remarkable how much is exported, the good, the bad, and the ugly, particularly Hollywood and things of that nature, to other parts of the world. And I, you hear so much about, the West being in decline. You see all the immigration stuff going on in Europe. You see the cultural breakdown as well, especially over here in the states. And we definitely are at as they say the fourth turning, and it'll be very interesting to see where we're at in 5 years. It could be 30 years war 2.0. I mean, who knows? Laurent, if there's anything else you'd like to dispense to the audience, please feel free to share. And then also, how can people get in touch with you and learn more about you?
Well, I just say that it's true that the West has dominated the world over the past 500 years. But if you look at history on a longer time horizon, I mean, the Chinese empire was dominating at some point. The Persian Empire was dominating at some point. The Ottoman Empire was also dominating at some point. So it's just like everything. Everything is cycle, and there's a cycle also in the world dominance. So I think that, as I said, we are here at a turning point. I mean, I think it's a great privilege for all of us to be alive in such a period of time of history, because we are probably going to experience one of the major change in civilization over the past 500 years. So if
Amen.
people wants to contact me, I'm not sure that they will agree with everything that I've just said and all my opinions, but I'm always open for discussion. So I'm writing the Macro Butler Substack. It's free to subscribe. I also help high net worth individual to navigate this difficult and interesting time. So they can contact me at info@themacrobutler.com. And I also recently launched a Telegram channel where I put some thoughts which are more, I would say, instant reaction to the news. So they can also look at the Macro Butler on Telegram.
Laurent, great to have you again back on the show. And yeah, looking forward to having you on here later this year. And of course, seeing where things shake out.
It's my great pleasure, Christian, and looking forward to be back on your show again anytime soon.
All right, Laurent, you take care. Quick ask: over half of you who watch the show regularly haven't yet subscribed. If you've enjoyed the show, you're finding value in it, subscribing is really the best way to support the channel. It's, of course, free. It literally takes 2 seconds, and it lets the algorithm know that this content matters. And of course, my commitment to you is going to be that I'm going to continue to bring on great guests, refine those questions. And of course, I'm always receptive to your feedback. If there's certain people that you'd like to have on, or certain questions, or this, that, and the other that you'd like to have as part of the show going forward, things of that nature, please let me know. I'm pretty easy to access. Anyhow, that's my commitment to you. If you can subscribe, that would mean a lot. Thanks.